1. Judy Garland. Judy Garland struggled with substance abuse and financial instability throughout her life. By 1969, she was married to her fifth husband, nightclub manager Mickey Deans, and living in London. On June 22nd, Deans claimed he found her unconscious in their bathroom. She died hours later from a barbiturate overdose. Her final words, as reported in Deans' memoir, "Weep no more, my lady," were whispered to him before she retired to the bathroom. However, no other witnesses corroborated this account. Garland's lifelong battles with studio pressures, mental health, and addiction cast a shadow over her final years. Critics argue Dean's portrayal may have been sanitized to absolve himself of blame, as Garland's erratic behavior and reliance on pills were well documented. Her death, at 47, symbolized the tragic cost of fame, but the authenticity of her farewell remains debated. Last words. I'll miss you, Mickey. I love you. 2. Charlie Chaplin. Chaplin, the legendary silent film star, spent his final years in Switzerland after being exiled from the U.S. during the McCarthy era. A lifelong agnostic, he reportedly dismissed a priest's offer of last rites with this witty retort, implying the ritual belonged to the clergyman, not himself. His son, Michael Chaplin, confirmed the anecdote, noting it aligned with his father's irreverent humor. Chaplin's health declined gradually. He died peacefully in his sleep at 88 from a stroke. The quote underscores his defiance of convention, a trait evident in films like The Great Dictator. While some biographers question the exchange's literal accuracy, it persists as a testament to his enduring wit. Chaplin's legacy as a cinematic pioneer remains untarnished, with his final words reflecting a lifetime of challenging norms. Last words. Why not? After all, it belongs to him. 3. Bette Davis. Davis, known for her razor-sharp persona, allegedly quoted her iconic line from Beyond the Forest on her deathbed. However, her assistant Catherine Cermak stated Davis instead thanked her quietly before succumbing to breast cancer. The dump line, though apocryphal, became part of her mythos, reflecting her reputation for caustic wit. Davis's career spanned 6 decades, with late-life comebacks in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Her final years were marked by illness and estrangement from family, yet she continued working until 1989. The discrepancy in accounts highlights Hollywood's tendency to romanticize stars' exits. While Cermak's version is credible, the fictional quip endures in pop culture, illustrating how Davis's on-screen persona overshadowed her private reality. Last words. What a dump. Apocryphal. Versus I'm going. Thank you. 4. Cary Grant. Grant, the epitome of suave sophistication, retired from acting in 1966 and embraced LSD therapy and Eastern spirituality. His final words to wife Barbara Harris before a fatal stroke in Davenport, Iowa, were calm and resigned. Biographers like Mark Elliott note Grant's philosophical acceptance of mortality, influenced by his psychedelic explorations and marriage to Harris, 47 years his junior. Once haunted by 5 failed marriages and studio pressures, Grant found peace in his later years. The quote's simplicity contrasts with his tumultuous past, symbolizing a hard-won serenity. While some skeptics argue the line is overly tidy, Harris and friends affirmed its authenticity, cementing it as a fitting epitaph for a man who reinvented himself beyond the screen. Last words. I'm ready to go. 5. Rudolph Valentino. The Latin lover of silent films died at 31 from peritonitis following a misdiagnosed ulcer. During emergency surgery, Valentino reportedly pleaded with surgeons to preserve his identity, a plea likely embellished by the press. His death triggered mass hysteria, with fans mobbing his funeral and several suicides reported. The quote romanticizes his image as a doomed romantic hero, though contemporary accounts suggest he was delirious and incoherent. Valentino's career was already declining due to changing tastes and scandals, yet his untimely death immortalized him as a symbol of 1920s glamour. Historians attribute the poetic last words to journalists capitalizing on his mythos rather than factual record. Last words: "Don't pull it, doctor. I'm not afraid of death. Just let me live. As myself." 6. Spencer Tracy. Tracy, one of Hollywood's most respected actors, shared a 26-year secret relationship with Katharine Hepburn. His final words, whispered to her hours before his death from a heart attack, were confirmed in Hepburn's memoir, Me. Suffering from alcoholism and diabetes, Tracy had been frail for years, but continued working with Hepburn in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Their partnership, both on and off-screen, defied studio-era norms, as Tracy remained married but estranged from his wife. The tender farewell underscores their deep bond, contrasting with Tracy's gruff public persona. Hepburn's account is widely accepted, though some speculate she omitted details to protect his legacy. Last words: "I love you. I love you, Kate." 7. Louise Brooks. The Pandora's Box star retreated from Hollywood in the 1930s, becoming a reclusive writer in Rochester, New York. Her final words, from a letter to friend James Card, reflect her existential musings. Brooks's later essays critiqued the film industry's exploitation of women, aligning with her unflinching worldview. While her death from a heart attack at 78 was quiet, the quote's eloquence matches her intellectual rigor. Scholars consider it authentic, as Brooks frequently discussed mortality in correspondence. Her posthumous recognition as a feminist icon contrasts with her overlooked career, making the quote a poignant coda to her complex life. Last words: "I'm not afraid to die. It's the stake one puts up in order to play the game of life." 8. Jean Harlow. The original blonde bombshell died at 26 from kidney failure, exacerbated by studio doctors' outdated treatments. Her mother, John Bellow, recounted these words in her memoir, portraying Harlow as a weary child. However, biographers like David Stenn argue Bellow exploited her daughter's legacy, casting doubt on the account. Harlow's career was meteoric, but her personal life, marked by abusive marriages and studio control, left her exhausted. The quote's simplicity resonates with her tragic narrative, though its accuracy is contested. Harlow's death led to reforms in studio healthcare, a small legacy for a star extinguished too soon. Last words: "Mama, I'm tired, so tired." 9. John Barrymore. The Shakespearean actor and notorious libertine succumbed to cirrhosis at 60. His quip to friend Gene Fowler days before his death epitomized his theatrical flair, though Fowler's biography, Good Night, Sweet Prince, likely polished the phrasing. Barrymore's later years were a decline into alcoholism and self-parody, a stark contrast to his early acclaim in Hamlet. The quote, while apocryphal, captures his lifelong rebellion against propriety. Historians note Barrymore's actual final days were marked by incoherence, but the line endures as a tribute to his wit. Last words: "Die? I should say not, dear fellow. No Barrymore would allow such a conventional thing to happen to him." 10. Stan Laurel. The comedic genius of Laurel and Hardy faced his end with characteristic dry humor. When a nurse asked if he had any final requests, Laurel, bedridden from a stroke, delivered this quip. Friend Dick Van Dyke affirmed the story, noting Laurel's humor never waned. Born in England, Laurel's career spanned vaudeville to Hollywood, though he struggled financially after Oliver Hardy's 1957 death. The skiing line, absurd given his frailty, typifies his timeless comedy. While some dismiss it as too perfect, contemporaries insist it's genuine, a final laugh from a man who dedicated his life to joy. Last words, I'd rather be skiing. 11. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart, the epitome of hard-boiled Hollywood charm, died at 57 from esophageal cancer, likely exacerbated by his lifelong smoking and drinking. Known for roles in Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, Bogart cultivated a persona of cynical wit, both on-screen and off. His alleged final quip about switching from scotch to martinis, a nod to his famous line in The African Queen, fits his self-deprecating humor. However, its authenticity is debated. Biographer A.M. Sperber notes Bogart was heavily sedated in his final days, making coherent speech unlikely. The quote first appeared in gossip columns posthumously, possibly crafted to immortalize his rakish image. Bogart's fourth wife, Lauren Bacall, never confirmed it in her memoirs, instead describing his quiet resignation. The line endures because it encapsulates Bogart's duality, the tough guy with a vulnerable edge. His death marked the end of an era, as method actors like Brando began dominating Hollywood. While the quip is apocryphal, it remains a toast to his legacy as cinema's definitive anti-hero. Last words, I should never have switched from scotch to martinis. 12th Clark Gable. Clark Gable, the king of Hollywood, collapsed from a heart attack at 59, days after filming The Misfits with Marilyn Monroe. His final words, spoken to fifth wife Kay Williams, were reported in her memoir, Clark Gable, a biography. Gable's health had declined since his World War II service and the traumatic death of third wife Carole Lombard in a 1942 plane crash. The Misfits, written by Lombard's friend Arthur Miller, became Gable's swan song. The phrase, "It's getting dark," may have been literal, a request to return home before sunset, or metaphorical, reflecting his awareness of mortality. Critics argue Williams romanticized the moment, as Gable was known for stoicism, not poeticism. His death shocked fans. Monroe allegedly blamed herself, as Gable performed strenuous stunts for the film despite doctors' warnings. The quote's ambiguity resonates with Gable's career-long balancing act between masculine bravado and private vulnerability. While unverifiable, it underscores the twilight of Hollywood's classical era. Last words, please hurry, it's getting dark. Nasty Marilyn Monroe. Monroe's death at 36 from a barbiturate overdose remains shrouded in conspiracy theories. The alleged phone call to friend Peter Lawford, husband of JFK's sister Pat, was cited in Anthony Summers' Goddess, The Secret Lives of Marilyn Monroe. Summers claimed she sounded slurred and despairing, referencing her rumored affairs with JFK and RFK. However, no phone records or witnesses corroborate this. Housekeeper Eunice Murray, present that night, stated Monroe was alone in her bedroom. The quote's theatricality, aligns with Monroe's troubled persona, a mix of glamour and fragility. But most scholars dismiss it as myth. Her final months involved conflicts with Fox over Something's Got to Give, addiction struggles, and psychiatric care. The Kennedys distanced themselves posthumously, fueling speculation. While the line is likely fabricated, it reflects Monroe's tragic role as both victim and symbol of Hollywood's dark underbelly. Last words, say goodbye to Pat Lawford, say goodbye to the President, JFK, and say goodbye to yourself. 14. James Dean. Dean, 24, died when his Porsche 550 Spyder collided with a Ford sedan near Cholame, California. His mechanic, Rolf Wütherich, survived and claimed Dean warned him about driver Donald Turnipseed's approaching car. However, Wütherich's account changed over time. In some versions, he admitted Dean was speeding. The crash occurred hours after Dean received a speeding ticket, adding irony to his rebel image. The quote's dramatic tension, a foreshadowing of doom, enhanced Dean's mythos as the ultimate live fast, die young icon. Yet, Turnipseed insisted Dean's car appeared suddenly, leaving no time to react. Dean's death, just weeks before Rebel Without a Cause premiered, cemented his status as a cultural martyr. While the exact words are unprovable, they symbolize the reckless idealism of his brief career, forever frozen in adolescence. Last words, that guy's got to stop. He'll see us. 15. Greta Garbo. Garbo's iconic line from Grand Hotel became her epitaph, though she clarified, "I never said, I want to be alone. I said, I want to be left alone." The reclusive star spent her final decades in New York, avoiding public life. Her actual last words are unknown. Nurse Gretchen Stone reported Garbo muttered incoherently before dying of pneumonia at 84. The misattributed quote persists because it encapsulates Garbo's enigmatic persona. Retiring at 36 after Two-Faced Woman flopped, she became a phantom of old Hollywood, wandering Manhattan in sunglasses. Biographer Barry Paris argues the mythologized line reflects her deliberate cultivation of mystery, a rejection of fame's intrusions. In reality, Garbo cherished close friendships, but loathed the spotlight, a contradiction mirrored in the quote's enduring half-truth. Last words, I want to be alone. 16th, Bela Lugosi. Lugosi, immortalized as Dracula, died penniless at 73 from a heart attack, addicted to morphine after years of B-movie obscurity. His son, Bela G. Lugosi, attributed the quote to him, though biographers note Lugosi was likely too ill for such reflection. In his final years, he collaborated with Ed Wood on Plan 9 from Outer Space, a career nadir. The quote's wistfulness contrasts with his reality. Typecast as a horror villain, struggling with language barriers and poverty after fleeing Hungary. Lugosi's desire to write a book mirrors his unfulfilled ambitions beyond the coffin-shaped roles that trapped him. While possibly fabricated, the line humanizes a man reduced to caricature, hinting at the charisma that once made him a star. Last words, I have had a very exciting life. I really must write a book one day. 17. Errol Flynn. Flynn, the swashbuckling star of The Adventures of Robin Hood, died at 50 from a heart attack exacerbated by alcoholism and drug abuse. The quote from his memoir, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, was likely polished by ghostwriter Earl Conrad. Flynn's final years were marked by legal battles, failed marriages, and declining health. Hardly fun. Yet the line aligns with his devil-may-care persona, cultivated through roles as charming rogues and real-life scandals like his 1943 statutory rape trial. Biographer Charles Hyam argues Flynn's hedonism masked deep insecurities about his talent and masculinity. The quote, whether authentic or not, serves as his epitaph, a defiant embrace of excess, refusing to apologize for a life lived on the edge. Last words, I've had a hell of a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. 18. Joan Crawford. Crawford's alleged outburst, reported in daughter Christina's Mommy Dearest, is emblematic of the biography's sensational claims of abuse. Dying of pancreatic cancer at 69, Crawford reportedly chastised housekeeper Carol Ann Rettig for praying. However, friends like Myrna Loy denied the account, calling it a vindictive fiction. Crawford, a relentless self-made star, fiercely controlled her image. Her final Oscar-winning role in Mildred Pierce mirrored her own ascent from poverty. The quote's sacrilege fits the book's monster mother narrative, but clashes with Crawford's documented Catholic faith. While her relationships with her children were strained, the line's authenticity is dubious, a testament to how scandal can eclipse reality in Hollywood lore. Last words. Damn it, don't you dare ask God to help me. 19th W.C. Fields. Fields, the misanthropic comedian, died on Christmas Day at 66 from a stomach hemorrhage. His mistress, Carlotta Monti's memoir, You See Fields in Me, recounts this profane farewell delivered in their Los Angeles home. Fields's curmudgeonly persona, seen in films like The Bank Dick, made the quote believable, though Monti's account is disputed. Biographer James Curtis notes, Fields was estranged from his family and bitter in later years, yet capable of tenderness toward Monti. The line's mix of vitriol and loyalty encapsulates Fields's complexity. A man who mocked society but secretly craved connection. While possibly exaggerated, it remains a fitting punchline for a life spent skewering hypocrisy. Last words. God damn the whole friggin' world and everyone in it but you, Carlotta. 20th Gary Cooper. Cooper, the stoic hero of High Noon, addressed his wife Veronica Rocky Balfe as Coop, his lifelong nickname. Dying of prostate cancer at 60, his reassurance mirrored his on-screen roles as resilient, principled men. Biographer Jeffrey Myers notes Cooper's Catholic faith and quiet courage during his illness, refusing to publicly disclose his diagnosis until shortly before his death. The quote's simplicity reflects Cooper's unpretentious nature, a Montana-born actor who avoided Hollywood parties for hunting trips. While some question its folksy perfection, Rocky affirmed it in interviews, cementing its place in Cooper's legend. His death prompted eulogies from peers like James Stewart, who called him the best of us, a man who lived as honorably as he acted. Last words, don't worry, Coop, I'll get by.